Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're uncovering the story of a historical figure whose entire life literally defines the very essence of integrity and loyalty. We're heading back to 7th century Arabia to look at Abu Ubaydah ibn al-Jarrah, a companion of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When we talk about history, we usually get caught up in the massive battles or those sweeping political shifts, right? But honestly, sometimes the most profound lessons are found in the character of just one single person. In this explainer, we're getting right to the heart of what it means to be truly dependable. It's the story of the trustworthy companion of Islam, a man who set a standard for trustworthiness that we're still marveling at today. Every nation has a trustworthy man, and the trustworthy man of this Ummah is Abu Ubaydah ibn al-Jarrah. I mean, wow, that is a staggering statement. Just think about it for a second. What kind of flawless character, what kind of absolute unwavering devotion does it take to earn a title like that directly from the Prophet himself? It wasn't just a casual compliment tossed out there, it was a definitive declaration of who Abu Ubaydah was at his core. But of course, titles like this aren't just handed out on a silver platter, are they? No way. They're forged in the fires of extreme adversity. So how exactly did he earn such an ultimate designation? Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. The Trustworthy Man, Earning the Ultimate Title. To really understand how he lived up to those profound words, we need to map out his journey across 4 completely pivotal phases. We're looking at early Makkah, the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, and finally, the devastating plague in Syria. Each of these events basically escalated the stakes of his unwavering loyalty. We're going to see him go from social ostracization to the absolute chaos of the battlefield, and then ultimately face the ultimate test of leadership. So, our story kicks off in early Mecca. Abu Ubaydah was actually among the very first people to embrace Islam. And you have to remember, at this specific time, embracing the faith brought immense danger. We're talking severe persecution, harsh economic boycotts, and extreme physical hardship. But through all of that extreme danger, Abu Ubaydah remained totally steadfast beside the Prophet. This early period really laid the bedrock of his resilience. It proved his commitment wasn't just some fair weather thing, it was absolute. But as incredibly tough as Mecca was, the major, high-stakes trials were just waiting around the corner. Part 2. Faith over family at Badr, the ultimate internal conflict. Now we hit the Battle of Badr, and this was not just a typical military clash. For Abu Ubaydah, it was agonizingly personal. On one side, you have his worldly ties, his own father, who was actually fighting for the opposing forces of the Quraysh. On the other side, his loyalty to Allah and his messenger. Picture the sheer chaos and terror of combat. And right in the middle of it, his father is aggressively seeking him out. His own father is repeatedly trying to attack him. Just imagine the psychological torment of that. This wasn't some faceless enemy, this was the man who raised him. So, what does he do? Well, the sources tell us Abu Ubaydah avoided fighting his father for as long as he physically could. He was constantly dodging, constantly moving away, trying absolutely everything to spare his father's life. But eventually, he was backed into a corner. His life was in immediate, unavoidable danger, and he had absolutely no other choice but to defend himself. This heartbreaking moment proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that his faith literally preceded all worldly ties. It was the ultimate internal conflict, resolved only by his absolute dedication to his beliefs. Part 3. A painful sacrifice at Uhud. Physical devotion. If Badr was this immense test of emotional loyalty, Uhud shifts the stakes entirely. Now it becomes a test of profound, intimate, physical sacrifice. The battle had turned against the Muslims, and the Prophet himself was severely injured. Which brings us to the number 2. 2 metal rings from the Prophet's chainmail helmet became deeply embedded into his face. When Abu Ubaydah saw this horrific injury, he rushed forward immediately. But removing those 2 rings, it would end up costing Abu Ubaydah 2 of his own teeth. The details of this are just incredible. Abu Ubaydah knew that if he used his bare hands to pull metal rings out of a facial wound, it would be jerky and it would cause the Prophet excruciating pain. He was terrified his hands might slip, so he bypassed his hands entirely. He leaned in and he bit down on that first slippery, bloodied metal ring with his own front teeth, pulling it incredibly gently. The force required was so intense that when the ring finally popped out, his own front tooth was completely uprooted. But he didn't stop. He did the exact same thing for the second ring, losing a second tooth in the process. He permanently altered his own face, just to spare his leader a fraction of extra pain. And despite the agony,
His overriding emotion was immense gratitude that he could help. Actually, it's fascinating. His companions didn't see that unique gap in his teeth, known as hatam, as a disfigurement. To them, it became a beautiful mark of immense honor.
Part 4. The Plague in Syria, the Final Stance.
Fast forward several years. Abu Ubaydah is now a highly respected commander in Syria. But a new, invisible enemy sweeps in, a devastating plague. When news of this absolute nightmare reached Medina, Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab was desperate to save him. Omar loved Abu Ubaydah dearly. So he sent a letter essentially ordering him to return to Medina under a pretext. It was an explicit way out, a totally honorable loophole to leave the affected area and save himself, and nobody would question it because, hey, it's an order from the Caliph. But Abu Ubaydah saw right through it. He knew exactly what his old friend Omar was trying to do. His response is basically a masterclass in principled leadership. He wrote back, politely but firmly declining the order. He said, simply, I cannot leave the Muslim army behind. He was their leader. How could he possibly flee to safety while the people he was entrusted to protect suffered and died? He chose to place his complete trust in Allah rather than flee for self-preservation. And so he stayed. He remained right there with his army, walking among the sick, leading prayers, managing the crisis from ground zero, never once abandoning his post. Soon after, the plague took him as well, and he passed away as a martyr alongside his people. He didn't just talk about being the trustworthy companion of Islam, he lived it, right up to his very last breath, cementing his legacy forever.
Part 5. The Legacy of True Honor, Virtues of the Trustworthy.
Looking back at the whole picture, Abu Ubaydah gives us a clear blueprint for what true honor really looks like, and this brilliantly illustrates the virtues that define it. It's not about wealth or status, it's about these 4 things. Trustworthiness, being utterly reliable when things are at their absolute worst, just like in Syria. Sacrifice, putting others before yourself, even when it costs you deeply, like at Uhud. Humility, doing the right thing without looking for glory. And tying the whole shebang together is complete devotion to Allah, which gave him the strength to navigate that agonizing choice at Badr.
So we might not be facing a medieval plague or a 7th century battlefield today, but our character is tested every single day. We live in an era of rapid change and, honestly, pretty fleeting loyalties. So look at Abu Ubaidah's unwavering standard and ask yourself, in your own life, in your own circles, how will you build a legacy of trust? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking knowledge, keep reflecting on these incredible historical lessons, and I'll catch you in the next one.